guys, it's Kira and welcome to another video. Today I am all cozy with a lovely warm mug of tea because, in case you didn't know, spooky season is basically here. I mean, technically, if we're going to be technical about it, it is still August, so I guess you could say spooky season still has a little while to go yet, but thanks to the wonderful Gabby from the channel Gabby Reads and Olivia from the channel Olivia Reads a Latte, spooky season is coming early this year and I'm so excited about it. Gabby and Olivia are both big lovers of autumn, Halloween and thrillers and horrors and basically all the good stuff, and so this year they've decided they're not waiting until October for Halloween to arrive. They're bringing spooky season early by hosting a summer Halloween readathon called SUMMERWEEN. And if you can't tell already, I'm pretty excited about it. So SUMMERWEEN is going to be taking place at the very end of summer and the final full week of August, which is the 24th until the 30th. And that basically means that we get to spend the final full week of summer pretending that it's autumn, and then the very next week it's actually September, which is just going to be so exciting. So essentially, it's pretty much autumn, if you ask me. It's no surprise to anyone that I'm excited about this readathon because, as you'll know from the fact that I literally mention autumn and how excited I am for it in literally every single video multiple times, I absolutely love autumn, so this is just the ideal readathon, and it's also the perfect chance for me to try and read some more thrillers, horrors and just generally spooky books, because that's something that I really want to do more of. I enjoy them every time that I do read them, but for some reason I just don't have that many of them on my shelves, and so this is the perfect excuse to finally start reading more thrillers and horrors and just generally getting spooky. So I will of course have Gabby and Olivia linked down below along with our announcement video so you can get all of the details for this wonderful readathon and hopefully take part as well, because I think it's just going to be so much fun. But essentially this readathon is one which has 5 prompts. You don't have to pick 5 separate books, I don't think. I'm pretty sure that you are allowed to layer up your prompts and have one book that matches up to multiple prompts if that suits you better, but I've personally decided to go for 5 books. Even though I know that I'm working on the week of this readathon as well as teaching yoga in my spare time and also trying to keep up with a YouTube uploading schedule of 3 videos a week. So in reality, am I going to be able to read 5 books this week? Probably not, but that's not going to stop me from trying. So without further ado, I'm going to talk you through all 5 of the prompts and all of the books that I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to be able to read in this week, because we never know, we might get some kind of reading miracle where I just manage to read 5 books like straight away, but I'm bracing myself for the fact that that's probably not going to happen. But in readathons, I do just think it's really fun to pick as many books as possible just to give yourself all of the options, so then even if you don't manage to read all of them, you get a good choice and a good selection regardless. So without further ado, let's jump into the prompts. So prompt number 1 is to read a book with a creepy cover, and this is obviously a prompt that is very much down to personal interpretation, because what one person finds creepy, someone else might not. Excuse me, train. Every time I try and film a video. Here it comes. So for prompt number 1, we have to read a book with a creepy cover. Now that is very much down to your personal interpretation, because of course what I find creepy you might think is just completely normal, and then what you find creepy I might think is just fine, and so it's very much down to what you personally think makes a creepy book cover. And I genuinely didn't have a lot of books on my shelves that I found very creepy. I think again that comes down to the fact that, as I've mentioned, I don't have a massive amount of thrillers and horrors on my shelves yet, although I am trying to change that, but I do generally think books from those genres are the ones that are most likely to have creepy covers. And a lot of the ones on my shelves are ones that I've already read. And generally when it comes to readathons, I do try to just read new books just because I think that's more fun than rereads. And so I had to kind of narrow it down to any of the books that I hadn't read that looked kind of creepy. And the one that I've picked is actually a relatively recent addition to my shelves, and that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This one was very recently, very kindly gifted to me by my friend Molly from the channel Mind of Molly. And I actually opened this one up on a vlog. And in that vlog, I said that I thought that this book was a thriller, But in actual fact, I was then told in some comments on that vlog that it's more of a domestic drama than a thriller, and it just maybe has some thrillery tropes in there, which I still think is really, really interesting, and I'm certainly looking forward to reading it and seeing exactly how thrillery I find it. But referring specifically to the cover, this is obviously a book which has a little paper house on the cover, and that house is being burnt down, and that was just very, very creepy to me. It's not creepy in the sense that it's like outwardly scary and terrifying, but I think it just has that slightly unnerving and unsettling quality to it that just kind of makes you feel a little bit creepy, just because, in my opinion anyway, the concept of houses burning and like out of control fires in houses is really, really terrifying. And so I think that this just has that slightly creepy tone to it without being like overly scary. Now, like I said, I had thought this was a thriller and then was told that it wasn't, and so I don't know a massive amount about this book, and I think what I thought I knew isn't actually true, and so I don't know much going in, but I'm really, really excited to see what does happen. From what I understand from the synopsis of this book, though, it's set in a very well-off, thriving, and according to the blurb, progressive neighbourhood, and then this mother and daughter turn up in this neighbourhood and rent a house there, and they are very, very much not in keeping with the style and just lifestyle of everyone else in this neighbourhood, and because of that they kind of cause a bit of a stir, but they're also really intriguing and I think very attractive to a lot of people. And so I think there's a lot of drama surrounding that, and a few other dramas as well going on, which I'm very, very much looking forward to finding out about. So like I said, I think this has got a creepy cover. Let me know if you agree with me, but regardless, I think it's kind of creepy, and I'm really, really looking forward to reading this one, particularly because, as well as just hearing good things about this book, I've also just heard great things in general about Celeste Ng's writing style, and so I've really wanted to pick up one of her books for quite a while, and I'm really looking forward to starting with this one. Next up, we have to read a book which is paranormal or supernatural, and I absolutely loved this prompt because honestly, would it really be Halloween, or I guess Summerween in this case, without something spooky and paranormal happening? I don't think so. So the book that I've chosen for this one is by an author that I've been meaning to read more of. I have heard brilliant things about her books, and so far I've only read one of them, and in particular I've heard really good things about one of her duologies, which is what I'm going to be starting during this readathon, and that is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Vicious is the first book in a duology, which is a dark academia style duology but with some paranormal and supernatural elements thrown in. I believe that this is about two college roommates, Victor and Eli, who are both science students, and they both have a particular interest in the subject of near-death experiences, and I think that through doing a lot of experiments together they come across this knowledge and understanding that under certain circumstances people can develop supernatural and superhuman abilities. I think that then some things that happen in the aftermath of this discovery cause a massive issue between these two roommates, and then a lot of drama ensues from there. I think have heard Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte talking about this book, funnily enough, and I believe that she said that this is a book which is told in two timelines. So we have the college timeline, where we are of course being introduced to the experiments and this discovery of this supernatural ability, and then we also have the future timeline, which is all about the aftermath of what happened between these two roommates. And from what she said, it seems like these two timelines gradually get closer and closer together until they meet in the present tense, which just sounds so intriguing, and I honestly cannot wait to read it because it sounds super interesting. I love dark academia in general. I think it's such a good genre, but then not many dark academias are paranormal. They usually just surround, traditional murder, and so in this case we have dark academia but with some more supernaturally elements, which I think is going to be a really, really interesting addition to the genre, and I'm really interested to see how V.E. Schwab deals with that. So very much excited to read this one, and I will of course be keeping you updated on what I think of it. For prompt number 3, we have to read a book which is set in a haunted house, and I absolutely love this prompt because I just feel like I'm going to get all of these spooky vibes from this book, and honestly that's exactly what I'm looking for from this readathon. However, it was also really, really difficult to narrow down which book to pick for this one because honestly there are so many incredible books that match this prompt, because the haunted house setting is obviously a really, really old classic setting for all things to do with gothic books, horrors, thrillers, and just everything else in between. Haunted houses come up so often, and so there were a lot of choices for this one, but the one that I've chosen is actually a relatively new release. It's one that I think came out at the end of July or the beginning of August. It's very, very new, and it's one that I've heard only good things about, which of course has made me even more excited to pick it up. And that book is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. The cover for this just looks so dramatic and intriguing, and I absolutely love that combination of the like fuchsia-y, purpley pink dress with a green background, and it just looks so intriguing. So I'm very, very excited about this book, and like I said, I've heard such good things about it. Another reason I'm so excited to read this one though is because it's actually the book pick for September for the Dark Academics Book Club. That is a book club which I host along with some of my incredible booktube friends Emma, Lucy, Carolyn and Mary, and I will of course link them all down below so you can go and check them out. But every single month we pick a book together and read it, and it's usually a book which has of course dark academia undertones, dark general tones, themes that are surrounding darkness, horror, gothic and all of that fun stuff, and we generally just love dark books. And so this is our September pick and we are all so excited to read it. I know that technically this readathon is happening at the very end of August, but I think I'm just going to get a head start on this one and I'm just so excited. It matched up to this prompt so well, being that it's set at a haunted house, and then it's so close to September that I thought it would kind of be okay to read it slightly early. But if you also are interested in reading Mexican Gothic, I'd highly recommend joining us for our live show at the end of September. I'll leave some details down below for you, and also the link to our Discord chat so that you can chat about Mexican Gothic with us, because I think it's going to be a really, really interesting one. Now, I don't know a massive amount about this book because I think the less I know going into this one, the better. I'm happy enough going into it and knowing that it has such great reviews and that people really, really love it, and I'm just going to sort of enjoy the mystery as I get through it. But what I do know is that I believe it's set in a haunted house. I've heard a few people mention that. And then it's also about a woman who goes to, I think, help her cousin who believes that she's being poisoned by her husband, which sounds very, very intriguing. And I don't know if it's going to have paranormal elements or if it's going to be more to do with domestic drama. I don't really know, but it sounds very, very intriguing and I'm excited to read it. The next prompt is a super cute one, and that is to read in the dark. I just thought that was really, really fun, and again, kind of down to your personal interpretation, because what you think of as dark could just be reading when it's nighttime, it could be reading in a dark room with just a torch, or really trying to strain yourself and read completely in the dark, which I don't think I'd recommend because it's probably not very good for your eyes. But I thought this was a really fun one as well, because of course you could just pick any of the other books that you've picked for the more specific bookish prompts, or like me, you could pick an entirely new separate book just for this one. And I've actually decided to read a couple of short stories just because, like I said, I don't think reading completely in the dark is that good for your eyes, and so I thought that reading a short story would be a good way to still take part in this prompt and do the challenge, but also not too long in the dark, basically, if that makes sense. So the books that I'm going to be picking up, like I said, are short stories, and they are from this book that I've been talking about quite a lot recently called Different Seasons by Stephen King. This is a collection of 4 Stephen King novellas, and so far I've read 2 of them. I've read Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, and I've also read The Body, and both of them were really, really good. And I generally don't love short stories that much because I often just leave them either not really having connected with the story or having enjoyed the story but just feeling like it needed more and would have been better in a full novel format, whereas both of the ones that I've read from this one so far have been so incredible, and I've left them feeling like I've read 2 complete stories, which I think is really incredible. And so I'm really, really excited to read the other 2, and that's what I'm going to be trying to read in the dark. Now, strangely enough, the other 2 books from this book are ones that I've never heard of, which I think is going to be really intriguing and is unusual in terms of Stephen King, just because typically when I've read Stephen King books, they've been ones that I've heard of before or have maybe even seen the film version of, whereas the other 2 novellas in this book are ones that I absolutely know nothing about, which is going to be really interesting because I'm just going in with a completely open mind, and really all I know is what the blurb says about them, which is the following. First up, we have Apt Pupil, in which a golden schoolboy entices an old man with a past to join him in a dreadful union. That's the one that I'm most excited about because it sounds so intriguing. And then we also have The Breathing Method, is the tale of a doctor who goes to his club and discovers a woman who is determined to give birth no matter what. And that really is confusing and I don't know what that could mean, but I'm really interested to find out. So like I said, don't know much about these ones because I've never heard of them before, but I think that's going to be very, very interesting and I'm really excited to see what they're all about. So can't wait to get to these, especially because I enjoyed the other 2 short stories in this one so much that I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy the other 2 as well. And then our 5th and final prompt is to read a book which has been recommended to you by one of the hosts. And for this one, you could of course go for any book you've ever seen recommended by Olivia or Gabby, or you could go specifically for one that they've talked about in relation to this readathon, which is what I've done. I ended up going for one that Gabby discussed in her announcement video for this readathon, and it's one that I had already been really excited to read, and so as soon as Gabby mentioned it, I knew that this was the perfect opportunity to read this book, and that is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I read Lucy Foley's other book, The Hunting Party, back at the end of July, and I was taking part in another readathon, and I enjoyed that one so much. It's a murder mystery, which I ended up giving 4 stars, and I generally don't love murder mysteries all that much, so the fact that I enjoyed that one enough to give it 4 stars was really exciting, and I just loved how she dealt with murder mystery. It's essentially about a group of friends who go off to stay in a remote cabin in a really remote part of the Scottish Highlands, and when they're there, a murder takes place, and the mystery surrounds not only who has committed the murder but also who the victim is, which I thought was so interesting because you don't find out who the victim is until really close to the end, which just added an extra element of mystery into the murder mystery because you were trying to figure out who had committed the murder. So not only was everyone a suspect for being the murderer, but they also could have all been the victim, which was just so interesting. And it was multiple perspective, and it was multiple timeline, which just was an amalgamation of all of my favourite things. And so as soon as I finished that one, I knew that I was really excited and hoping to read The Guest List as soon as possible, and then as soon as Gabby mentioned it, I knew that this readathon was the perfect opportunity. Now, I don't know a massive amount about The Guest List, and I feel like I've said that quite a lot on this TBR, but that's mostly because I'm trying to read thrillery books, and I think when you're going into anything that has an air of mystery about it, not knowing much going in is the best way, because why would you want to kind of spoil it for yourself before you experience it in book format? And so I will just read the blurb because I think Lucy Foley's blurbs kind of don't tell you much at all, but they just hook you and make you so interested for the book. So in this one we have, each has a secret, each has a motive. Off the wind-swept Irish coast, guests gather for the wedding of the year. Old friends, past grudges, happy families, hidden jealousies. 13 guests, one body. One guest won't leave this wedding alive. Ooh, does that not just sound so intriguing to you? Because it certainly does to me, and I cannot wait to read it. I'm hoping that just like in The Hunting Party, this is a book which has multiple perspectives and that we will be able to sort of see things from many points of view, and maybe that we'll have that same mystery of not only not knowing who the murderer is, but also not knowing who the victim is, because that was just so unusual and intriguing and definitely was my favourite part of The Hunting Party. So I'm very excited for this one. And that brings my Summerween TBR to an end, and I am so ready to get my spook on. And I just heard myself say that, and I'm so disappointed in myself because I really should not have said that. It sounded so wrong, and I would just like to formally apologise for the fact that you had to listen to it. I promise I'll never say something that cringy ever again. But to summarise, I am very excited to be reading all of these books and taking part in Summerween and just getting excited for Halloween, autumn and spooky season in general. I cannot wait to read all of these books, and like I said, I will link Gabby and Olivia down below so you can go and check out all of the information about this readathon and take part, because you still have chances to set your own TBR. If you've read any of the books that I've selected for my Summerween TBR, definitely let me know your thoughts, because I would love to hear whether any of them were particularly good or you'd recommend them, because like I said, although I'm going to be trying, I don't know how realistic it is to try and read all 5 of them in 1 week whilst also working, so there's a chance I might need to do a little bit of prioritising here. So let me know if you've got any recommendations. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.